Hello troublemakers, today I want to talk about Hannibal Lecter, one of the most famous horror movie characters out there. I didn't even know this was a show, not gonna lie, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I honestly thought it was a real person. Anyway, I'll be doing my usual review and commentary on season 1. We open the show with a guy named Will breaking into a house and killing a husband and a wife while narrating at the same time. But it turns out he works for the FBI. He was only putting himself in the perspective of the killer in the case he was discussing. Still, that was the most confusing way to start this show. He's basically an autistic Sherlock, and that's not a joke. His character is actually written to be autistic. He's also a professor at the FBI Academy and gets approached by Jack Crawford, the head of the behavior science unit there. Jack wants to borrow Will's mind to help him catch a criminal who has kidnapped and killed several women. They can't find much evidence or track the victims. When they visit one of the victims' homes, things start to get weird.
Elise.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it for a second. Is this show not about Hannibal as the main character, or is he supposed to be the villain? I'll obviously find this out later since I'm like only 15 minutes in, but I am a bit confused right now. While Will uses his killer perspective technique thing, a woman suddenly shows up acting strange.
I'm a special investigator.
Never been an FBI agent?
Strict screening procedures.
Detects instability. You unstable?
Will says that the killer is apologizing by leaving this victim in her bed. She's the 8th victim, by the way, but the only one who has returned. After that, Will does the cool guy thing and adopts another stray dog because apparently he owns a lot of dogs. The next day, Jack confronts Will about what he meant by the killer apologizing. Will explains that this killer believes he's in love with these women and kills them out of mercy. The forensics team examines the body and realizes the killer has been eating his victims. The woman they found had liver cancer, so the killer didn't like that and apparently just put her liver back. And then we finally meet Hannibal. Hannibal is a therapist who's going to evaluate Will and assist in the investigation. Later, they find another body, this one impaled on deer antlers with her lungs removed. Then we cut to Hannibal cooking. Well, I'm pretty sure are the same lungs they were just talking about. He's basically Jeffrey Dahmer minus like the sexual part. Hannibal and Will investigate a construction site because they found a specific type of metal from the piping on one of the victims. While they look through the files, Hannibal accidentally drops some of them on the floor just so he can secretly call their suspect and warn him that the police are onto him. When they get to the suspect's house, he kills his wife right in front of them and tries to kill his daughter. Will shoots him multiple times and the whole scene ends in about like a minute. I really liked this our first episode. Will is a bit weird, but extremely smart and deeply understanding of killers. Hannibal is the main villain, obviously. Super intelligent and mysterious. And it seems like the show is setting up a cat and mouse dynamic between him and Will. Also, I never seen Silence of the Lambs, which I'm pretty sure is the villain of Hannibal in that movie or something like that. I don't know. I literally have not seen anything like this. So don't hate me in the comments. Anyway, I really like Will's character. His mental instability is fascinating in this context and adds like a kind of double-edged sword to his personality. He's incredibly smart, observant, and like knowledgeable, but he struggles to understand ordinary people and is haunted by his visions and imagination stuff. Hannibal being the villain is also very interesting. I can already tell the actor is going to do a great job. He has this calm, calculated aura that makes him seem dangerous and intriguing at the same time. Overall, I liked how this episode sets up the foundation for the main characters and hints at their future arcs that will probably appear in other seasons or later this season. My thoughts right now is it's probably gonna be Will, who is either gonna learn to better understand people or lose his mind completely, and the people around him could change as well. I'm not sure yet, but I'm excited to see where this goes. Will is at the gun range being a terrible shot and dealing with PTSD. Why is that stuff always not real, dude? Anyway, Will and Jack go to another crime scene. This one has so many deer antlers, it's crazy. Will goes back to teaching, and this time, it's about the case of the guy he killed. A woman named Dr. Alina Bloom shows up. She and Jack are trying to convince him to help him out in the field. Will practices shooting at the range again, and that one lady from before shows up, flirts with him, and takes him into another crime scene. They find a row of bodies with mushrooms growing out of them. There's also this reporter named Freddie Lounge who tries to sneak photos of the scene. I'm only pointing her out because she seems like she's gonna be so annoying and a giant problem later on. And not even 10 minutes later, she shows up at Hannibal's office and gets caught secretly recording his session with Will. Will figures out that the new killer is a doctor or something. He's inducing his victims into diabetic comas and burying them alive until they die of kidney failure. They track him down, find his car, and discover a woman still alive in the trunk. They also find out that Freddy has been leaking case information online. The FBI busts into her motel and detain her for obstructing justice since she left DNA at a previous crime scene, and her post tipped off the killer to run away.
Right now, future you is thanking me.
Tell me about Will Graham.
What the hell? That killer from before wants to talk to Will for some reason, and he also wants to bury the girl who almost died in the first episode. Since Will feels guilty about her, Will finds him mid-kidnapping and shoots him in the arm. Low key. He's got aura. Guys, the episode ends with Will back in Hannibal's office talking about killing and admitting that he liked killing the guy in the first episode. This show is very enjoyable. I love when shows play with the mind of the main character. Having him hallucinate and be haunted by killings is really interesting. It allows him to evolve into either a better or a worse person with no real in between. The show pulls you in with this mysterious killer element, and with Hannibal as the villain, though you never really know how things will unfold, it feels like a mix of Dexter and Sherlock, a skilled protagonist haunted by trauma and experiencing it 24/7, which gives you like this unique show and like a compelling vibe to it. The daughter of that one guy woke up. Her name's Abigail, by the way. They think she might have helped her dad kill those women. Dr. Alina meets Abigail and talks to her. Since she's a psychiatrist, she thinks Abigail is hiding something and acting a little too calm. Her life just got turned upside down and her dad just killed her entire family. Will goes over the 8 deaths caused by Abigail's dad, but the 9th one, the body that was impaled on the deer, wasn't his doing. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say it was Hannibal. That annoying reporter is back again, trying to interview Abigail and bring up all the trauma from like 2 days ago. Will shows up and kicks out the reporter, and then he and Hannibal talk to her. Will and Abigail trauma bond, and then Will spots the reporter outside. She is so annoying. To be fair, most reporters are, but she still pisses me off so much.
You told her I was insane.
I can undo that. I can undo what I said. I can also make it a lot worse.
I hate her so much. Speaking of her, she meets with one of the victim's brother, telling him that the daughter of his sister's killer is out of her coma. So I guess Abigail's going to be hunted down or something now. Abigail and the gang go back to her house. Will gets PTSD being in the same place where he killed that one dude. Abigail's friend shows up and chats with her. Apparently everyone at their school thinks she's a killer too. Then that one guy from earlier shows up.
Did you help your old man cut out my sister's lungs while she was still using?
Yo, fair enough. The next day, they all go to the cabin where her dad did his killing stuff. Abigail realizes her dad fed her the victims, and he wanted to kill her but didn't, which is insane to even comprehend. Then blood drips from the ceiling, and they find her friend from yesterday dead. Will believes that whoever killed the girl on the deer also killed this one. That same guy from before shows up at the cabin and surprises Abigail. He tells her he didn't kill the girl, even though everyone thinks he's a suspect. This interaction lasted like 10 seconds. How did it escalate this fast? Anyway, Hannibal knocks out the doctor and makes Abigail show him what happened. Then he convinces her to help hide the body, or else she'll end up in prison. But you know, she's gonna keep that to herself. This episode was great. I don't remember if I said this already, but Will mentioned that he likes killing people. I'm pretty sure Hannibal is trying to turn Will into something like him or something like that. I don't know. So he can become like partners in crime. He's doing the same thing with Abigail, I think, too. Either that or he's planning to kill her later on. Anyway, really good series so far. I think I have around 10 episodes left, so that's gonna be something, I hope. Will is talking to Hannibal about his weird trauma dreams involving Abigail's dad.
Sometimes I felt like we were doing the same things at different times of day, like I was eating or showering or sleeping at the same time he was.
So I kind of forgot to mention that Will literally tries to become his suspects when he's solving a case. He adopts their mindset and beliefs. That's why he failed his psych test for the FBI, but for some reason he was still allowed to teach there. Anyway, we go to another crime scene involving a dead family who were all shot at dinner time. While that's happening, Hannibal sneaks into Will's house, bribing the dogs with meat, probably so when he visits they won't bark or anything. I don't know. Back in the case, one of the kids is missing, and they say that he was probably abducted about a year ago. Then we're with Will at therapy, where we learn that he has mommy issues, and Hannibal was an orphan at a young age. Also, Hannibal was supposed to go to Will's house to feed the dogs, so I guess he didn't actually break in, and I was completely wrong about that. We're back with the case again. They found prints, but it turns out they belong to a different kid who was also missing. Then we go to another crime scene with another dead family. We finally meet the people going around doing this. It's some crazy lady gathering runaways to murder their families for some weird reason. One of the kids pisses himself in a gas station because the older kid planned him to do it. They're probably planning to kill this kidnapper mother lady. I just know the oldest one is scheming, but that's it. Will mentions that the kids are experiencing capture bonding, which is exactly what it sounds like, forming a bond with your captor to survive. Will figures out a woman is trying to form a family of some kind by kidnapping children, convincing them she loves them more than their real families, and then they kill their family. They just throw you into this. The kid runs away, the kidnapper later gets shot, and one of the kids, CJ, I think his name is going to juvie or something since he helped kill his own family. I really liked the villain of the week in this episode. I enjoy having multiple antagonists in shows like these. The other ones I reviewed tend to be more boring and less intriguing when they don't have that. Anyway, it was a solid episode with Hannibal slowly warming up to everyone so he can convince them that he isn't a killer. The whole family killer subplot was interesting too. I'm curious if the villains are gonna get more and more unhinged and more intelligent as well, because everyone so far has been pretty smart. Will they keep getting smarter, or will they just shift from being clever criminals to being like careless ones, is what I'm really thinking right now. We open this episode with Will walking aimlessly down the road barefoot until two cops stop him and take him home. He's having more mental problems than usual, so he visits Hannibal. Hannibal suggests that Jack might be the cause of Will's declining mental health since he's overusing him as a resource for these crimes. Then we move to another crime scene. Will believes that this new killer is transforming his victims to make them higher beings in some way. He figures out that the suspect has a brain tumor and can't sleep, so he decided to do the right thing and skill a couple to try to make them look like angels, so I guess they can watch over him. Another person is killed in a similar way too after. Beverly, the cop from earlier, talks to Will to make sure he's okay after he freaked out on Jack at the crime scene. We also learn that the victims were criminals and that the suspect is a vigilante killing for God, which low-key kinda goes hard. They eventually identify the suspect and head to the family's farm, only to find him hung up like the rest of the victims. Will also starts thinking about quitting this line of work, or at least stopping field work, because he knows he's becoming more mentally unstable. Thinks stepping away might be the best thing for him.
See what you are. What do you see? Inside. I couldn't bring it out of you. Not all the way out.
Wait, what? That was a vision Will had? Wasn't real? Also, Jack's wife, Bella, has like 4-stage lung cancer. Throughout the episode, she talks to Hannibal about what to do. Jack eventually finds out, since he's like an FBI agent, and they have a heartfelt conversation about it, and it's honestly pretty sad, but they don't bring this up ever again. She doesn't show up. I don't even know if she died. I think after this episode, the next two, she's gone. But, I don't know. Another episode, another sad situation. I honestly really like this show. It has everything I enjoy besides the super dark 2010 lighting style. It's great. I can already tell I'm going to glaze this show so much. Anyway, solid criminal this episode. A very interesting character too. I love villains like that. The biblical aspect adds a depth that I always enjoy. It gives the story an extra layer of mystery. I'm really curious to see how they're going to change Will's mindset as well, because it seems it's getting more and more tainted by the crimes he's seeing, and by Hannibal slowly clawing his way in the back of his mind. It's like changing Will as well, so his mindset's becoming more and more unclear. Great episode. Time to move on to the next one, I guess. Another episode, another dead person. This one takes place at a psych hospital. When Will and Jack go there, the big boss who runs the place really wants Will to stay since, honestly, he basically belongs there. Anyway, the crime scene is something else. How do you even do that? Got like to spear the body so many times from such a weird angle. And what's the point? Also, the eyes were dug out, by the way. Will does his usual imaginary POV thing. Not gonna lie, the punch looked weak as hell, dude. My grandma hits harder than that. After doing his roleplay, Dr. Bloom and Will visit the guy who killed the nurse, one of the patients in the ward. They think he might be a serial killer who disappeared 2 years ago. The thing is, he admits to being that so-called Ripper, but it's definitely a red herring. It's probably the guy who runs the ward. And side note, this Ripper is gonna be brought up a lot later on, so keep that in mind, by the way. Will doesn't believe the crazy guy is the Ripper, saying it's plagiarism. Plus, the real Ripper killed one of Jack's trainees, so Jack really cares about finding out who it is. The gang talks to the annoying reporter to help lure out the real Ripper and confirm if they got the right guy or not. The reporter doesn't really find anything, but they figure the suspect is persuaded into thinking he was the killer. Then we get this long-winded mystery that honestly wasn't very surprising. The Ripper turned out to be Hannibal, who killed the trainee because he accidentally discovered he was the real killer. Solid episode, though Will wasn't very much involved in this one. I really enjoyed seeing Will's mental state develop throughout the episodes, so I was a little disappointed, but it was still good. Hannibal's a great main villain. The actor perfectly balances the elegant yet vicious nature of his. My next point isn't specific to this episode, but I appreciate the seeds of romance being planted for certain characters, mainly Will. The detective lady is the obvious choice. It helps make the show feel more realistic with this kind of office romance that usually sprouts in these environments. We open this short episode with Will talking about the Ripper, who is Hannibal. Jack walks in when Will talks about the death of the trainee. Then Jack gets all sad. Well, that was yucky. This was just an opera performance that Hannibal was watching. Nothing important. Will and Jack go to another crime scene. Will does his usual "that's so Raven" technique to find out this new killer was trying to save the dead guy's life through massaging their heart. The others believe this is the Ripper, but Will disagrees with that because of his vision thing. When Will goes to Hannibal, he suggests that it's probably the Ripper, which we know why he's saying that. Jack and Beverly have a lead on whom the victim is and bring Will and Hannibal along. SWAT shows up to take down this Ripper, and they find a guy trying to cut out a guy's kidney. This guy is not the Ripper, but a completely different killer. He was just selling organs or something. I don't know. This was a great episode. I made it a bit shorter since a lot of it wasn't really irrelevant to the big picture. It was just Hannibal cooking human organs and showing some of his victims and all that. However, it showed the behind the scenes of what Hannibal does and how he cooks, and the food looking kind of low-key good, I'm not gonna lie. But maybe I'm just a fat ass. I am very curious on where they're gonna take this story because Hannibal is very smart, but Will is gonna figure it out sooner or later. And the show's name is Hannibal, so I'm thinking it's gonna end at the end of season 3 is when they catch him. I'm thinking that Will is gonna slowly figure it out at the end of season 1, but will slowly progress and find out to defeat him in the other seasons. We meet another killer who uses human intestines as cello strings, so that's fun.
To open you up to get a decent sound out of you.
Will and Jack find a body that's probably from the same guy. This new killer is actually a friend of one of Hannibal's clients who killed the guy from earlier to show Hannibal his skills or something like that. Will's mental state is also deteriorating like crazy. He's hearing strange noises, like an animal being attacked. Dr. Bloom comes over to check on him, but they end up making out for a quick second for some reason. Then Dr. Bloom tells him they shouldn't do that and leaves. Honestly, I did not expect them to get together. Even for a brief makeout session, I did not expect that. But, Hannibal invites the new killer over for dinner. They both know each other's secrets, but when Will shows up, Hannibal's guest has to leave. Will talks about the kiss that just happened, saying that he had a crush on her for a while. He also mentions the animal noises he keeps hearing in his head. Hannibal kind of ignores all that and snitches on his new killer friend. The next day, Will shows up at the guy's shop. While Will steps out for a second, the guy kills the officers inside and heads into the basement. There he finds the gruesome workshop with intestines hanging everywhere. Hannibal ends up cutting ties with the client. He was getting too clean or something like that. Then the client's killer friend shows up and Hannibal snaps the client's neck for some reason.
Nothing has happened in our relationship that you and I can't.
The cello killer and Hannibal fight. It's actually pretty entertaining for a show that's mainly drama focused. The FBI shows up afterwards and Hannibal's alibi is pretty solid. He claims his client was killed by the murderer who then attacked him, so he acted in self-defense. Good episode. This killer was interesting. I'm surprised this show keeps finding new ways to kill people. The one that stood out to me the most is the angel killer. It was weird but fascinating how he did it, especially since he did it to himself too. That was the strangest part. Anyway, Will having a crush on the doctor was unexpected. At least, not fully expected. I thought it would be a detective at first and then her later on. But maybe it'll happen in reverse or at a different point. I don't know. I really like how Hannibal is opening up though. Especially with Will being his first true friend. It'll probably end with him confessing who he really is to Will. But you know, I don't know. Another weird crime scene this episode. It's on a beach with like a tower of bodies. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like not a temple. I don't know. Will does the usual, then he ends up in Hannibal's office and starts to panic about how he blacked out and ended up in Hannibal's office just now. When Will checks in with Jack, he didn't even know Will blacked out during the crime scene. Will just decides not to tell Jack and keep it to himself, and then Will decides to discuss his new case to his class.
Why is he coming out into the light?
Will? I don't want to interrupt if you're rehearsing.
Or not. Dr. Bloom comes to Will to discuss that she regrets leaving him the other night and that she has feelings for him. She says that the only reason she rejected him is because Will is mentally unstable, which is pretty fair. Jack found the body the guy Annabail killed. He brings over Annabail to identify him. He also believes that she has something to do with his death. The Dr. Bloom woman gives Jack a strict talking to after this. Anyway, the gang head to the suspect's place. He's an old man. He also admits to all the murders he committed.
There is something beautiful about that ball of silence at a funeral. All those people around you knowing that you made it happen. And it's going to be a luxury next to the kind of retirement home I can afford.
Damn, this guy is just so evil, bro. He literally just says that he's broke as hell, so prison's gonna be a luxury. Then Will tells their murderer that he killed his son because the newest victim was his son. He didn't even know it was. He thought it was someone else's from his like late wife or something. It was really confusing. After that scene, Will randomly has a nightmare where he figures out that Hannibal killed that one guy. Then he turns to Hannibal for help, which then he admits that he helped her get rid of the body. They both decide to keep this between themselves because that's like the right thing for Hannibal's future. Hannibal invites Abigail, Will, and the reporter for dinner. The reporter wants to write a book about Annabail and her father. Later, Annabail admits to helping her dad kill the girls, like getting to know them and stuff like that to like pick out the victims. It's actually really bad. Okay, a lot to process. So Annabail isn't the most innocent person ever. She even admits to befriending all her dad's victims before he killed them, which after one of them dies, maybe two, you can see a pattern that should not be repeated. Did she just block like all those thoughts though? Because that would make sense, but like, how do you do that without not like feeling bad? You wouldn't want to believe your father is this monster, so you block it out. It's really tricky because she's been through a lot, being raised by a monster, so that's all she knows. Do you punish her for that or try to help? That interests me a lot throughout the show. The differences between being normal or being a sociopath. It's all so abstract and so much gray area that it almost seems impossible to figure out a specific choice you have to make and if that's the right choice. Anyway, great episode. I do not like Dr. Bloom and Will being romantic though. I don't think they have good chemistry, but it makes sense for story-wise, so it gets a pass. Will talks to Hannibal about everything that's been happening to him, the visions, and the feeling that his life is fading away. He goes home to cook some fish he caught. What the hell? We're suddenly at a crime scene, I guess, and Will must have blacked out or something. It was really bad. Jack confronts him about it. Will thought he killed that woman. Back to the crime scene and figures out that the new killer dragged the victim under the bed and mangled her face. Will returns to Hannibal to talk about how real his visions are becoming. He thinks it has to be a tumor or something, so Hannibal recommends a doctor for him to see. After getting an MRI, the doctors find out his right side of his brain is inflamed. However, Hannibal tells the doctor to lie to Will and say his brain is fine. I have no idea why. Maybe to stop him from working with Jack and making him think he's mentally insane or something. Later, Will investigates the crime scene alone. What's going on? Will blacks out again and calls Beverly to help him confirm if what he saw was real. In the middle of it, he figures out that their killer is a deranged woman who didn't even realize she had killed someone. They find the suspect's mother, who says her daughter has a severe mental illness and has always been violent. After hearing this, Jack starts questioning why Will is still working for him, since it's clearly making him more unstable. Will then visits the doctor who did this MRI, only to find him murdered in the same way as the earlier victim. Will starts to believe he somehow attracted the killer. That night, the killer woman hides under Will's bed. He tries to comfort her, telling her she's alive. Since then, she's taken away into some kind of tube-looking thing. Finally, it's revealed that Hannibal killed his doctor friend, and when the killer woman entered the room, Hannibal planted her DNA at the crime scene. Great episode. I love seeing Will's mental state change over time. It's very interesting. I'm curious why Hannibal chose to keep the information about Will's brain from him. It's probably an experiment he's conducting until he feels like Will should know. Also, why does Hannibal like Will so much? Maybe because in his mind, Will's his only friend, but why? I was thinking it might be because Will's empathy and imagination make Hannibal believe he can truly understand him, but I don't know. Anyway, good episode. Will's having yet another nightmare connected to one of the victims he investigated. Then we see the fake Ripper from a few episodes ago. Apparently, he's going to court now. Will's at another crime scene, does his usual vision thing, and it turns out the fake Ripper escaped while being transported and killed 2 guards. Will and Dr. Bloom visit the boss of Arkham, who's incredibly annoying, just full-on douchebag energy. The FBI starts planning a manhunt for the fake Ripper, while Will continues to spiral mentally. He talks to Hannibal about his state of mind, saying that his sense of self is slipping away. He's so terrified of losing who he is and what that might mean. Meanwhile, the fake Ripper is targeting people connected to his old therapist. Dr. Bloom is also on that list, so Will checks on her. She's fine, but the reporter lady is not. The fake Ripper tricks her in a meeting with him because he wants her to write his story. He's also hoping to lure out the real Ripper. By doing this, Will figures out that the latest murder wasn't done by the fake Ripper at all. It was the real one who left a clue about where to find the fake Ripper. When they get there, the fake guy tries to escape, but Will catches him. Will, though, looks absolutely awful, like deathly sick. They decide to head to Hannibal's office, bringing the fake Ripper along, but for some reason, Hannibal tells him no one is there. That's when Will starts seizing out.
Well, you're having an episode. I want you to hand me the gun. Well, I want you to hand me...
While Will's in that state, Hannibal casually talks with the fake Ripper, saying he knows where Dr. Bloom is, since the guy's been looking for her. Hannibal is clearly not a good person, you know, the cannibalism and all that, but he's still kinda cool in a messed up way. After the fake Ripper leaves, Hannibal finally helps Will through his seizure. He just stood there and watched, by the way. Will then takes off to find Dr. Bloom before the fake Ripper does, since Hannibal planted that idea in his head. Will finds the killer, and instead of fighting, they just talk about identity and how lost they both feel. Well, saw that coming. Hannibal is such a great villain because he's incredibly intelligent and deeply understands how the human mind works, how people think, feel, and act. But even with all that, he still can't fully control Will. He can manipulate him and lie to him when Will's mentally unstable, but true control always slips out of his hands. As we get closer to the end of the season, I'm hoping it answers some lingering questions about Hannibal and the other characters. I'm guessing it'll end on a cliffhanger, but honestly, I wouldn't mind that. I'll be happy to revisit this show again if it earns it. The fake Ripper was also an interesting character too. He did feel like somewhat campy, kind of like he stepped out of CW's Flash, but you know, it worked here because it added a fresh contrast to the darker tone of the show. Only 2 episodes left, so let's dive into this. Will's in the hospital since his health sucks. He visits that one lady with really bad acne from a couple episodes ago. She talks about how when she killed that woman, it felt like a really bad dream, like it wasn't real life. Later, when Will's back in his room, Hannibal visits him and brings him some chicken soup. That's not chicken. What? Will's not too happy about his new friend being burned alive, even has a pretty nasty nightmare about it. The next day, he goes to Jack's office to convince him that the lady was murdered. Then the detectives find plastic in her container. It turns out to be part of her hair comb, which caused the fire. Will realizes the lady didn't kill the MRI doctor and that someone copied her crime, just like how the killer in the first episode was copied. He starts connecting the dots, thinking it might be the same person. Will and Annabelle talk about killing and how good it felt. Yep, that's the conversation. Annabelle gets all emotional and stuff. You know, woman problem. Will's slowly figuring out the copy killer is someone in their circle. He's finally thinking clearly and not seeing visions, at least for now. At the same time, Jack figures out that Annabelle helped her dad choose his victims. He tries to find her, but Will already took her away. So Jack only finds the reporter. He then goes to Hannibal's place to ask where Will is. Hannibal kind of defends Will, saying he's not mentally well and not fully in control of himself. But then Hannibal backtracks immediately and plays an audio clip.
How did you feel seeing Marissa Shaw impaled in his antler room? Guilty. Because you couldn't save her? Because I felt like I killed her.
Suggesting that Will killed Abigail's friend and might have a personality disorder, that he's the copycat killer. Will's on a plane with Abigail, heading to the cabin where the murders happened. He figures out that she was the one who lured the girls out for her dad to kill them. He starts getting all like Joker-like in this way.
So you knew about this place and there is something wrong with you.
So I take back what I said about Will's mental state being fixed.
Sir.
What? Abigail's at her family's place for real this time, and Hannibal's there too. This is not gonna end well.
I'm so sorry, Abigail.
And that's the end of the episode. Great episode. Hannibal is slowly being found out, which it took a while, but we're getting there. I know he actually won't get caught. It's the first season. There's 2 more seasons. They're not going to do that. They're going to build it up nicely. I hate that Will keeps getting tricked by Hannibal. Not the whole being a killer thing. I expected that. But the fact that Hannibal isn't telling him about his actual brain issue. It's not a mental illness. It's a real, like, physical problem with his brain. Will could possibly die from this. Or at least it seems possible. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. And now Abigail's about to die too. So that's fun. I'm curious how Hannibal's going to cover this up. He'll probably frame Will or someone else at the last second. Only 1 episode left, so let's watch. Will's having yet another nightmare of some kind, which leads to another one where his limbs are being burned off or deceased or something like that. Okay, maybe it's not even a dream anymore. I can't tell, man. Will shows Hannibal the ear he threw up in his kitchen, which I originally thought was part of the dream, so I didn't think it was important. Hannibal calls Jack, and Will wants them to go to Minnesota to see if he really killed Abigail. For now, though, he's being arrested. They test the ear from the sink and the blood under Will's fingernails. Both come back as Abigail's. Dr. Bloom gets really upset with Jack for keeping Will in the field until he mentally broke. Dr. Bloom talks with Will in the interrogation room and plans to take care of his dogs until everything is sorted out, or until he goes to prison. Will tells her about the clock drawing Hannibal made him do and demonstrates it. I think that means he's going to get another MRI and finally reveal that there is something wrong with his brain. At least, I hope so. More evidence keeps piling up against Will, like the fish hooks with human remains found in his stuff. I'm pretty sure Hannibal planted those though. Jack confronts Will about it, and Will gets super confused because he wasn't sick when he supposedly made them. He insists someone is doing this to him. Classic I'm being framed thing.
Will Graham, you're under arrest for murder. You have the right to remain silent.
Well, that didn't work. Will attacks a security guard while being taken to prison and escapes. Jack and the team discuss it, but Hannibal convinces that the clock thing doesn't matter since he drew a correct one 2 weeks ago. Later, Will confronts Hannibal, who slowly gaslights him into believing that he's been the copycat killer all along. Will takes him to the place where Abigail died, and he finally starts piecing together who Hannibal is.
So sure. I know who you are anymore. One of us killed Abigail.
Let's go! My guy finally figured it out. Please don't tell me Will's about to die though. Jack shows up from behind. No! Look what they did to my boy! Will ends up in the hospital. The doctors confirm the brain issue. and Hannibal walks away clean. The season ends with Hannibal visiting Will in prison in the most mocking way possible. Good final episode. Obviously, I knew Hannibal wasn't going to get caught in the season. I'm just glad Will isn't dead. Still, it's such an unsatisfying ending since Hannibal gets away and everyone believes Will is the murderer. But that's just how it goes, I guess. Anyway, time for my final thoughts. The show was so good. I looked forward to watching it every night while writing the script. I haven't felt that way in months, which made this whole experience really enjoyable and easy to get through. The acting was great, especially from the actors who played Hannibal and Will. The actor who played Hannibal had this calculated presence. You could just feel how cunning he was through the screen. I'm not sure how he is in other projects, but here he felt refreshing with such a strong screen presence and the perfect vibe of an intelligent serial killer. Plus, he mogs everyone. That jawline is insane, dude. Will's actor was amazing too. He completely sold the idea that he was mentally unwell, and he managed to come across as both intelligent and a little pretentious at the same time. Will's mental decline also felt gradual at first and then suddenly severe near the end. Actually made it feel kind of realistic, though I'm no doctor. Anyway, that's the end of this video. It was a good show, so nothing really to say. I really kind of just said all my thoughts anyway. Bye bye.